the Bible talks to us about understanding our authority. We have authority over the enemy to step on snakes and serpents, and they won't hurt us, right? They won't harm us. So when that oppression came, I opened the door, and from where I was at in that and being open to learning and growing, I let it in, and I was more curious than standing firm in my faith to rebuke it. So it came and it just got worse and worse. And instead of operating in a place of faith to speak against it, like mom would always talk to us about, I was scared. And it got worse and worse, and it manifested itself into this delusion and mania. And I believe from my personal experience, it was an attack from the enemy on how my brain already worked. Because I'm sure you knew from when you came back, I was like this. I was excited. I was this and that. And I think the enemy attacks us in places where God gifts us to twist and manipulate, counterfeit, and almost try to destroy,
Yeah.
right? And that's, I think, what happened. And then he healed me. And do you remember? I want to ask you this, and I want to go back to that other point. Do you remember when I was telling mom, I feel like everything's gone, like my mind and how I felt in my head? Do you remember me talking about that at all?
Like you felt,
Like I just wasn't smart anymore,
oh
or
yeah. So I was gonna make a mention on that when you were saying that. The other half of mania is depression. It's called manic depressant. And I remember after everything went down, you fell in a slump of depression where, like you said, I feel like my mind's gone.
Mhm.
Zero motivation, like everything just reset. I
Yeah,
think I remember you talking about how like you built up your body through your fitness goals and that was just completely wiped out
yeah,
and you were super upset about it.
yeah.
Everything just kind of reset back to zero.
And do you remember with the medication, I gained like 20 pounds within a month?
Yeah. I didn't know it was 20, but yeah.
Yeah, I was 20 because the medication, one of them that I was taking, they were like, yeah, this is gonna like ruin your blood sugar. So you're just gonna have all like cravings and it's gonna be all messed up. And gosh, just even getting out of the hospital, I wasn't normal when I got back. Do you remember that? The healing hadn't occurred because the healing
Yeah,
would take place a few weeks later. But do you remember when I got back? I was still, because mom talked about this too, but do you remember when I got back? I was still weird.
vaguely.
Okay.
But I know the way you would talk. You actually made some videos when you were still like post
Yeah.
everything happening, and like your expressions on your face were very just like ugh, nothing.
Yeah.
And you were like talking about all these things you were gonna do.
Yeah.
But your like motivation was gone. That's what I remember because
Yeah.
a lot of it's still documented
Yeah.
on some like old videos,
Yeah.
and it was yeah,
I
Don
compl-
Dane.
yeah, I completely agree with that too in the forms of I was in more of a depression state. I would say it's a little different than manic depression because bipolar is categorized into two types, one
Okay,
and two. But I feel I was in that depressive, non-motivated state because I was medicated with three medications that made me feel completely useless.
probably just numbs your ability
Yeah,
to get manic.
right. And at that time too, I felt because what happens when you're manic is your brain is firing so fast and there's an imbalance in your brain. And because of that imbalance in your brain, the doctor told me your brain is destroying itself. And because it's destroying itself, every time you go through one of these things, your IQ is lowered, your mental and emotional stamina and fitness is hurt by it. So when he told me that and I got out of the hospital and they were on the medications, I felt like everything was gone. And that's what I was telling to mom. And you witnessed that in the forms of why isn't this guy doing anything? He's sitting on the couch. He's not reading. He's not doing. It was that was more hard for me to deal with than the diagnosis of having bipolar disorder. Because
Yeah,
in my mind, after mom just being in my ear saying, you're going to be healed, God is going to heal you, I made my mind up about that. I had a harder time dealing with how my brain was working
yeah.
because I said, how am I going to fix this? This isn't right, Lord. You gifted me in an area. But then after that healing occurred, all of that mind and how my mind worked really came back. And I'm sure you've seen that too from all the good times we had before it, the crash in the immense amount of darkness, and then to where we're at today.